We're joined now by the lawyer for the Swidan family, Jason Poblete. And again, Jason, as we set that up, no word on the when we're watching the summit between Xi Jinping and President Joe Biden on Mark, but apparently we have progress on pandas. Your reaction?
I say keep your pandas, close the Confucius centers, and give us Mark and all Americans and U.S. nationals unjustly detained in communist China. I mean, I just spoke with Catherine, Mark's mom, a few minutes ago. She had one simple request of this President Biden, who, by the way, has not called her, has not bothered to reach out to her. He said, Mr. President, and she communicated this to Ambassador Burns, please say my son's name. And I think that hasn't happened. They paid more attention to pandas. I think it's outrageous. I was floored, but not surprised. I mean, this is something I see in both political parties, although I think people are starting to wake up to these type of cases. But Mark's been locked up for a decade, more than a decade. And the fact that he hasn't come up at the highest levels right now at this meeting publicly, not just privately, publicly, I think sends a weak message to the communist Chinese dictator.
When's the last time his situation came up at all, as far as you know, in the U.S. government? I mean, this goes back, I guess, to the Obama administration, through the Trump administration, and now into the Biden years. When's the last time that you know it came up in the high levels of government?
Well, I think Ambassador Burns, who's our current ambassador to China, to his credit, I'll say he has visited Mark, was the first ambassador that's been able to be given access to Mark, and he's pushed back quite a bit. But unless it's coming from the very top, and we have the president talking about it, and thank you all at NewsNation, by the way, for being so on top of this and helping us highlight this case, because it's important to be out there talking about it. Unless the president talks about this directly to Xi, and it has to be public, it cannot be private. It's going to be tough to get Mark out of there. You know, Catherine's mom, you know what she told me just now? She said, Jason, I am afraid they have signed his death certificate. If we don't get Mark out of there, if we don't impress upon Xi and the civilized world that Mark's been in there for more than a decade, it's not just going to help Mark, folks. It's going to help a lot of people in communist China. And you know what? There's been Americans who've come out sooner. Mark's been in there more than a decade. There have been other U.S. nationals in there for less time. Somehow they managed to get out. And that's the one thing we try to underscore to the U.S. government, the Congress, the administration. Please don't cherry pick these cases. You have a law in place to help you execute this correctly. Follow it, and then show some political courage, some moral courage, and help get this man out of there.
He's in pretty bad shape, though, as his mom was saying, right? And Ambassador Burns, I guess, confirmed that. Is that right?
He saw it. Yeah, he saw it. I mean, imagine sleeping in a cell about the size of a large closet with the lights turned on and pretty much the equivalent of a concrete bed for years on end. But the one thing about Mark I've learned about him over the almost 2 years we've been working on this case is that he's a resilient fellow. He loves his country. He's a devout Catholic. He's not going to sign a forced confession. He would rather die there. And he has said this, by the way. I want to be free. I want to have my name cleared. And he wants the communist Chinese to put this behind them. And we want our president. This is not a partisan issue. We want our president to do the right thing. You know, all I saw this week has been pandas and corporations. Right. Where's the focus? Where's the focus on American issues and putting people like Mark before all these other issues?
Yeah, as you said, we've kept the story in the spotlight. Take people back, for those who aren't as familiar with it. So he went to China. He's a businessman, but he went to China, as I understand it, to try. He was looking for a good deal on, you know, remodeling his place, right? Furniture. And then, I mean, the whole thing just turned so south, right? So take us back to there. And has there been anything that would lead you to believe from that point that he would be set free? I mean, it's just there was no evidence presented, right? I mean, what's happened since then, if anything?
I mean, Mark was really at the peak of his life. He's about to go into his early 50s. I'm 53, a bit younger than I am. He was out there. He was going to get married. He was buying furniture. He wanted to bring stuff home, start a business. On his way back home, he got around the wrong people. And all this, by the way, has been documented with the UN Working Group on Arbitrary Detention, that they have made a ruling long ago. This was an arbitrary detention. There was no evidence against Mark.
Right.
Nothing, no evidence against Mark. He was tried by the kangaroo court system there in China. He's been put in essence, the Lao guy. They're trying to break him. He's not going to be broken. And that's the part of this, I think, that has the Chinese especially frustrated, is that he will not sign that forced confession. And Mark will also not even his faith. They've tried to persecute him on his faith. So to me, he's a dissident. He's a political prisoner. He's somebody who deserves that high level of attention that we give, by the way, a lot of human rights activists in China. Let's focus on Americans who are in this system, and we can support human rights in China, but if we don't support our own people, you think the Chinese are going to take us seriously? No, they're not.
Thanks so much for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.